I never mentioned it to you, but I had a competitor in the village, John Seymour. He disappeared a year ago. His wife wants to meet you. She's not easy to get along with, but I think you should go to see her.
My name is Emma Seymour. My husband, John, is a treasure hunter like you. A year ago, he went to an island in the Indian Ocean. Since then, I've had no news. I'm sure you could help me to find him. For you? John was tracking down a treasure, and I believe you're interested in that sort of thing. Just before leaving, he used to spend hours in the cellar. Go and have a look. There must certainly be some clues there.
What do you want? Emerald Island? It seems that a ship went down somewhere nearby. The Trindade, a 16th century Portuguese vessel. You should find out about the wreck.
Oh, there you are again. What can I do for you? The name is familiar. It was a Portuguese vessel in the 16th century. I can go to Lisbon to do some research. I'll ring back sometime in the next 3 weeks. I'm sending you all I could find out about the Trindade. It was a carrack on its way back from Goa in India. I didn't find the manifest, but other documents indicate that she was carrying a precious cargo. The Trindade was apparently captured by an English corsair, Thomas Blackbone. Then, nothing more.
Hello, What can I do for you? Thomas Blackburn? He claimed to be a corsair, but he was really just a pirate. I'll do some research on him. I'll ring you back in about a fortnight. Thomas Blackburn's greatest exploit was the capture of the Portuguese vessel, the Trindade. There's a fairly complete account of the attack. I'll send it to you. I don't know what became of Blackburn after this great exploit. He claimed the cargo of the Trindade was of no interest. Shortly afterwards, he broke off all contact with the British authorities. Rather suspicious, don't you think?
What do you want? You haven't got enough information to start an expedition. Why don't you go there to see what you can find out?
Do you want to see cassettes about the pirates? It's $10 to use the VCR. All right, I plug it in. You can use it any time.
The Mediterranean, cradle of civilization, therefore of piracy. 6 centuries before Christ, Homer presented Achilles as an arrant pirate. As for Ulysses, he is open to question. 5 centuries later, a gang of pirates captured the young Julius Caesar. What would Rome have become if, instead of ransoming him, they had killed him? So who dares say that pirates didn't hold the destiny of the world in their hands? The Romans were vindictive. They sent Pompey to clean up the Mediterranean. Piracy went underground, became more discreet. But at the beginning of the 16th century, it came into its own, in the form of the famous Barbary Coast pirates. In 1504, 2 powerful galleys owned by Pope Julius II were escorting a merchant convoy. The captain of the flagship watched amusedly while a miserable galliot slowly approached. Suddenly, a rain of arrows fell on the dumbfounded Christians. Hundreds of turbaned Moors climbed aboard. In a matter of seconds, the pirates had taken control of the ship. Their leader was a certain red-haired man who sported a thick beard. Redbeard. But the intrepid Moor didn't stop there. The soldiers of the Pope were stripped, and the Moors took their clothes. The galliot was taken in tow, and the pirates quietly steered a course towards the second ship. The crew of the second galley, believing their companions had had an easy victory, were in turn taken by the pirates. Thus began a reputation. Redbeard became a legend. He established his stronghold at Tunis, and all the renegades and adventurers in the Mediterranean flocked there. An expeditionary force of 10,000 Spaniards finally got the better of him. But Redbeard's little brother was even worse. Not content with equaling Redbeard in cruelty, he was also a shrewd politician. In all the ports of Christendom, the name Redbeard became synonymous with terror. The very personification of immorality, he died in his bed, a rich and respectable man of more than 80 years. The finest pirate legends center around the Caribbean. From 1640 onwards, it became the home of the Brotherhood of the Wave, as the pirates liked to call themselves. A motley collection of exiles, thieves, and stateless persons, they nevertheless formed a society that respected its own strict laws. In the 17th century, the Spanish galleons were the pirates' favorite targets. Their tactics were simple. Draw close to the ship, preferably by surprise, then leap aboard with terrifying cries. Torture was commonplace. Throats were slit without a second thought, and prisoners were few. Most important of all, the booty was taken on board their vessel and sold in the ports of Jamaica or the French Antilles. Jean-David Naud was one of these conscientious pirates. Perhaps a little more so than the others, for his reputation as a slitter of throats is well established. However, this man also had other qualities. He was an innovator. He invented dry land piracy. At the head of a small army of pirates and scoundrels, he merrily ravaged and pillaged the Spanish colonies. Alas, his luck ran out. After a series of unfortunate expeditions, he found himself abandoned by his men and lost in the tropical forest. He came to a sorry end, he whose cruelty knew no bounds, at the hands of some Indians who gave him a taste of his own medicine. Henry Morgan continued and improved on these adventures. At Portobello, the Spanish resisted. No problem. The pirates made a human shield with them and proceeded to advance towards the walls of the city. The defenders were shaken. They hesitated, unsure whether to fire. While they were deciding, the pirates made their way up to the ramparts of the city. Morgan even went so far as to bring death and destruction to the city of Panama on the other side of the isthmus. Then, tired of his adventures, he retired. Condemned and pardoned in England, he was then named Vice-Governor of Jamaica, where he ended his days, a respectable and very, very rich man. In the 18th century, the decline of Spain led to the decline of large-scale piracy. The great land expeditions were over. The pirates remained on their ships and extended their targets to include French, English, and Dutch vessels. These paradisiac islands abound with picturesque characters, like Captain Lowe, whose favorite game was to slowly cut his prisoners into pieces. One day, suddenly inspired, he interrupted the torture. His victims' ears were placed on a plate, salted and peppered, and served up to the victim. Captain Roberts, on the other hand, was a Puritan. No gambling, alcohol, nor women allowed on board, and throat-slitting was forbidden on Sundays. Pirate perhaps, but nonetheless devout. Which didn't prevent him from capturing a record of 400 ships in the Caribbean. While some showed respect for God, others made no secret of their devil worship. Blackbeard, already famous for his cruelty, claimed that the devil was his only ally. He was right, as proved by his end. Alone against the English army, he resisted 4 bullets and 25 sword wounds. He remained standing and continued to fight, while addressing an uninterrupted flow of insults to his assailants. Even the devil tired of his vulgarity and abandoned him. The Colossus then fell, but the legend grew, and persisted in Caribbean ports long after his death. And women in all this? Considered to be a source of discord, they were not allowed on board the ships of the Brethren of the Wave. There were, however, two who had a remarkable destiny. One fine morning in 1718, a pirate schooner lay at anchor off Providence Island. Suddenly attacked by an English frigate, she had to set sail promptly. In one of the cabins, Jack Rackham and the beautiful Anne Boney were indulging in amorous play. The buccaneer was in a difficult spot. The rules were clear: no women on board except when in port. It was then that he had the idea of dressing his mistress as a sailor. Anne thus became a member of the crew, and went on to distinguish herself in swordsmanship and wielding an axe. One day, they captured a young Englishman who agreed to join them. Anne was seduced by the manners, allure, and bravery of the new recruit. In short, she fell in love with him. Alas, when she declared her love to him, and by the same token the fact that she was a woman, she very nearly fainted. For the other was also a woman. His, or rather her, name was Mary Read. Not to be put off by details, they became fast friends and continued their activities together. All the pirates in the world know the story of the day their ship was taken prisoner by the English. The last two pirates still fighting were Anne Boney and Mary Read. The island of Madagascar is an ideal hideout for pirates. First of all, because it's situated on the route to India. And secondly, because its immense size enabled them to hide there easily. It was therefore inevitable that it should attract those pirates who grew tired of the oversized pirate population in the Caribbean. Practices were much the same in both places. Misson, a Frenchman, along with his friend and second-in-command Caraccioli, a defrocked priest, were already well known in the Caribbean. They set out to reform the practices of piracy. Their flag was white and bore a curious inscription: "For God and freedom." No rapes, no carnage. Of course, boarding a ship involved a certain amount of killing. But instead of slitting their captives' throats, Misson and his friend preferred to sermon them. Hoping they'd converted their captives, they gave them their freedom. Their ship was a forum of free speech. If they captured a slaver, the slaves were immediately freed, and the crew of the ship subjected to a long sermon on racial equality. But that was nothing. Misson and Caraccioli had a grand plan. On the island of Madagascar, they created a new nation, Libertalia. This was utopia at its best. The pirates lived there with their local women. Misson ran the Republic and Caraccioli was his spiritual guide. The laws were strict and embodied new ideas: common ownership of property and racial equality. Misson wanted to extend his high principles to the local populations. This was a mistake. The Madagascans invaded the young republic and massacred all they found. It was the end of a dream. Misson did not long outlive his dream. He disappeared shortly afterwards when the ship that was taking him back to France sank. Captain Kidd was another exceptional pirate. He claimed to be a sort of angel of justice and to track down bandits. He scoured the seas around Madagascar. One day, he got carried away and smashed the skull of one of his gunners. The gunner's widow did not forgive him and managed to have Kidd hauled before a judge. In vain did the unfortunate captain plead his devotion to the crown. He was hanged like a common criminal. As was the custom at the time, his body, chained and tarred, was put on public view.
What do you want? The books say he was a cruel pirate, but I don't believe it. Blackburn might have done some rash things in his youth, but at the end of his life, he was a peaceful old man. What do you want? Seymour was looking for the wreck of the Trindade, but he was unlucky. A big storm took him by surprise. He was wrecked just out from Devil's Island. You see the guy down on the beach? He's called Native. He's not easy to get along with, but he knows a lot. You have to know how to take him. When Seymour came, he talked a lot with Native. Have you talked with Native? He knows a lot of things.
I don't like tourists. If I had my way, I'd make them all walk the plank into shark-infested waters. I'm cool, tourist, and I hope for your sake that you never see me angry. I don't like tourists. How come you know about the Trindade, tourist? And what do you know about Blackbone? You're not so stupid after all, tourist. I can sell you a family heirloom. A map my father got from his father. Who got it from his father? It'll cost you $10,000. Farewell, tourist.
Now, my friend, what can I do for you? I'll agree to finance you. I'll give you $500,000 for 50% of the profits.
What do you want? I'll get my ship ready. According to these maps, the waters around the island aren't too deep, so there's no point in taking heavy equipment with us.
What do you want? Oh, it's infested with sharks around there. We'll need a specialist. It's no question of diving unless you employ somebody competent.
Hi, what do you want? The sea is full of sharks out that way. You need my services and some special equipment.
What do you want? Well, hey, if Joss comes with us, I'm your man. I'll pack my bags.
So, still looking for treasure? I'll contact the National Museum of Madagascar and sort out all the formalities.
Quite by chance, I came upon a piece of information that might very well be of interest to you. It has a price, of course. I have a document that dates from 1857. It's the testimony of an English captain concerning the sinking of an American steamer, the Southern Star. It's quite precise, and it will cost you $40,000. I knew it. You're incorrigible. I won't go below $30,000. The survivors were picked up by the Penguin, an English brig. The captain noted the location of the wreck. I'll send you the document.
What do you want, my boy? Come and see me.
You again? Do you want to come in?
What do you want? An American steamer in 1857. If we've got the right coordinates of the wreck, it's in water more than 1,000 meters deep. The exploitation will be very costly. First, we have to complete our documentation. I know who to see about that. Count on $10,000 costs and a 3-week delay. I'm sending you all the press articles of the period I could find. I'll continue to look. What do you want, my boy? Be patient. I'll call you as soon as I have any news. I'm sending you what I found in the way of legal and insurance companies' reports. I've learnt that an ancestor of Joss Timble's was sailing on the Southern Star. You should go and discuss it with Joss. He might be able to tell us something.
How goes it, lad? Just think, I've already spent all the money I earned working for you. I'm broke again. I feel like packing it all in. You know what I'd like to do if I had the money? Go on a cruise. Yeah, a cruise on a great big steamer, like in the old days. Ah, the steamers. There's no handsomer boat. In fact, I've just finished an album on the subject. You want to have a look? Ships have always been used to transport immigrants and other passengers. But the history of the packet steamer begins with the appearance of steam. Suddenly, ships were no longer dependent on winds to be able to sail, nor becalmed by their absence. Timetables could be adhered to and sailings become regular. In 1838, the Great Western, designed by the brilliant British inventor Isambard Brunel, was the first steamer to sail regularly between Europe and the Americas. Steamers became bigger and bigger, faster and faster, and abandoned the wooden hull for the steel hull, the paddle wheel for the propeller. By the end of the century, sails had totally disappeared. Oil would later replace coal. Steamers crisscrossed the seas of the world. The fastest competed to establish a new transatlantic record and win the famous Blue Ribbon Prize. For more than a century, captains spared no effort in their attempts to win the much-coveted trophy. In 1840, the Britannia made the crossing in 10 days. In 1900, the Deutschland did it in 5.5, and in 1952, the United States, the last steamer to win the trophy, crossed the ocean in 3.5 days. Monumental staircases, precious woods, porcelain, silverware, crystal, nothing was too good for the first-class passengers. And the cost of the voyage was on a par with the luxurious surroundings. The emigrants packed into the guts of the ship. Fleeing from hatred and misery, their eyes shining with dreams, they were poor but plentiful. The wealth of the maritime companies was based on them. Shipbuilders engaged in commercial battles, but national prestige was also at stake. England, the USA, France, Germany, Italy, each wanted to launch the biggest, most luxurious, most powerful steamer. The refinement of the British ships is indisputable, but the food was best on the French steamers, and we are still amazed by the flashy luxury of the German giants. There is no epic development without its trail of suffering and woe. And who can forget the sinking of the Titanic, the flagship of the White Star Line? Reputed to be unsinkable, its undersides were ripped out by an iceberg off the coast of Newfoundland. Or the Lusitania, torpedoed by a German submarine. And all the others. How many disappeared, victims of storms, icebergs, collisions, and fires? After the Second World War, progress in aviation science sounded the death knell of the old liners. Many went to the scrapyard. Others were converted into cruisers or floating museums. For just a little over 100 years, these giants of the seas illustrated one of the most colorful periods in the history of marine transport. I like steamers, although they weren't always lucky for my family. My great-great-grandfather, Timothy, was a gold miner. After 8 years spent prospecting, he set sail on a packet steamer, the Southern Star. Well, it went down, and my ancestor lost nearly all his fortune, but he survived. He came back to Golden Creek, where he worked as a carpenter till he retired. My great-great-grandfather talks about the sinking of the Southern Star in his diary. It's a unique document. It's yours for $1,000. I have the diary at home. Go get it for yourself. Here's the key. I live in the house on the landing stage. Oh, I forgot to tell you that the diary is incomplete. The last page is missing. I keep it on me. I use it as a page marker. It'll cost you $2,000. You see, my ancestor paid the captain of the Penguin to keep the true location of the wreck a secret. Don't ask me where the real coordinates are. I don't know. All I can tell you is that I inherited a painting with a strange inscription on it. It's in my place. You can go back and look at it, if you like.
What do you want? I can't help you. What do you want? Joss Timble took you for a ride. You shouldn't have paid him twice. I'm ashamed of him. To make up for it, let me do you a favor. I'm giving you a telescope. It's old, but it can still be useful.
I have a proposition. Yeah. Huh. You've got a good point. Now, a slight correction. And we're the only ones who know the exact site of the wreck.
Now, my friend, what can I do for you? Well, now, my friend, it's an enormous undertaking. We're talking about a very large sum of money. I'll give you $2 million with the usual conditions. I hope I won't regret it.
What do you want? According to your information, the wreck is in very deep waters. We're going to need the best equipment.
What do you want? At such a depth, we'll need special equipment. I'll see to it.
Hello? So, still looking for treasure? Well, the wreck is in international waters, which simplifies the formalities. I'll get my things ready.
Come and see me right away. I have something very important to tell you.
You again? Do you want to come in?
Nephew, I'm proud of you. Thanks to the money you made, I can finally fulfill a lifelong dream. The Maritime Museum opens today. Why don't you go and visit it?
Don't make such a face. We've worked a lot recently, and I think we need a little cruise to help us unwind. What do you say?